Alright guys, Dabu7. This is a follow-up video to the one I just did in regards to the Italy earthquake. What we have here are some strange patterns. As you can see here, perfectly straight lines in which these quakes are falling into these patterns. Zoom in here a little bit more so you can see. I want to point out that in this area, notice how the roads are named gas. There's different roads, once you zoom in, that are labeled I or 5 gas or all this. This is a fracking area. This is an area where a lot of gas is being ran. And once again, we have this massive grid type of pattern. This isn't just by chance that these things are happening in patterns like this. Once again, it's in a fracking region. The last time we saw a massive pattern like this was in Southern California. I've gone and looked at the tunnels underneath. I've looked above and I'm looking below ground. And I want you to pay attention to this waterway specifically. Amatrice sits right here. You can see it right here. Now, when you go to the maps, go to 3D here, you can see where the city sits in this massive range. And here is that little body of water, Amatrice. Behind it is another range with a bowl. Now, if you look at the fault lines, here's that one city, there's that waterway. The faults, these two, the biggest, come to a pinch point right here. And then we also have a line here and a line here. Two smaller faults with Amatrice sitting right in between the two, with that other range with the bowl right up here behind it. Okay? Right here. That, as you can see, is here. Here's that body of water. Here's that one big range. This is where the city sits, the town that took the brunt of it. And right behind it is this range with this big bowl. And you can see the odd pattern. So I've went looking at the tunnel systems, and there are lots of cave systems, tunnel systems, and everything else. All these secret labyrinths, so to speak, that run through Italy. But are they associated with what we're seeing? Well, a long time ago, they were concerned the buildings were going to start falling, and they did. They started falling into these old shafts once the buildings gave way, and there was 83 in 1 year, I believe it was 2013, where these buildings were collapsing into these older shafts. Hollow earth, hollow upper earth and ground. And you can see here how the faults are situated, the smaller ones running through here. Here's Rome. You can see how Rome sits uniquely in an area that doesn't sit with anything around it. Almost as if they would have known this back when they built the city, sitting in its safest spot. You can see all the activity here. But something unique happened here. There was a spike or a deviation of an electron beam observed in the particle accelerator in Grenoble. Now, they're saying that this was caused by the quake, but it happened at the exact same minute. Now, of course, if there was any kind of energy released, they would pick it up, and that's what they pick up through the seismic stuff that they have out there to pick up all the tremors and everything. But this beam, when we talk about CERN and the connection of this being connected to CERN or caused by something like that, you can see that these quakes are being picked up through the electron beams here, the frequency changes. So they're saying that this was a burst from the quake. I'm beginning to wonder if there's some kind of burst to make the quake happen. Because right now, you can't really dispute anything. If we knew that this burst happened a couple milliseconds before the quake, it'd be huge. A couple seconds afterward would prove that it's coming from the quake, being emitted from the quake. But what if something is triggering these quakes and it can be caught right out here in real time? They would have to be triggering it with some kind of beam or some kind of energy with their technology. And it's interesting that the particle accelerator is pulled into this and mentioned. And there's two huge spikes seen at the exact moment of these quakes. So I'm going to continue to dig on this because this could reveal a lot in terms of, like I said, CERN, all of everything they're doing. And there's a reason that we're seeing patterns, strange patterns, come out of these swarms. This is not the pattern of a fault. Okay, this is not how the faults run through here. Okay, yes, there is fracking going on here. Are they using technology in some kind of beam form to hit areas like this that they know that they're trying to frack at to loosen up certain spots? And you're literally seeing the effects of the technology from how they're hitting it. Something's going on here. And it's leaving its fingerprint. Now we know that there are bursts being picked up. And something's happening here. And is it what they're doing to free up gases? Using a new technology to just pounce this whole area and just dot it in certain places? Boom, 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 boom. Hoping not to cause a massive quake? Or maybe they are. They use this stuff as weapons, no doubt, just like they do the weather. But I thought it was very interesting that we're seeing all this, that they mention the spike or a deviation in the electron beam, that we have this massive, weird pattern that pops up. And you can see how the faults run through all the other maps. And really, with the fracking going on up top here in this bowl, in mass, and all these quakes hitting here in a strange pattern, there has to be something related there. And yeah, it's in a fault area. There's a lot of faults around here, but it's not like we're seeing the quakes hitting right here on the fault or right here on these major faults. It's not what we're seeing at all. We're seeing it right up here on top of this ridge where all this fracking is going down, leaving a strange pattern and this massive burst here that was picked up at the particle accelerator. So some interesting turn of events here. You know, prayers go out to everyone that's dealing with this, and this is why I always say have a plan. People think that it may be nonsense or they can prepare later. You don't want to find out the hard way. This is why we always say have a plan. I always say if you can plan for a lights out earthquake type of situation to survive that, then you should be able to handle most things that are going to get thrown your way. If you can have a plan to avoid that chaos and to be able to help others, because they're going to need it, you know, especially when buildings are crumbling and earthquakes and everything like this. And you have to know your area. You have to know the terrain and where you sit. If it's earthquake prone, sinkhole prone, things like that. But this is where it sits in terms of this. I think one of the most interesting things here is this burst and the pattern that we see from the quakes. I'll continue to update, but I can't stress it enough, folks. Have a plan in case of an emergency out there. And I've been fortunate here recently to hook up with Essential Drugstore as a sponsor. And it's great because for the longest time, I've been looking for a connection for medicines in stock for insulin. Because what happens when it hits the fan? Everything closes down. All the diabetics, anyone that needs insulin, what are they just going to die after 30 days? No, we needed a connection, and thankfully, I got a good one here that can handle all that. Heart medication, antibiotics, minerals, I mean, you name it. It's there in case anyone needs it. I'll leave a link. And like I said before, you have to have a plan in these situations, because you don't want to be caught slipping with nothing when something like this hits your neck of the woods. For real. And prayers go out to everyone out there dealing with this. I'll leave links. And until next time, this has been Dabu7. Much love.